Welcome back to PowerDirector Made Simple. Today's video is all about zoom, and I'm not talking about Google Zoom. So let's zoom, and jump right into it. There are at least 3 different ways to zoom in and out in PowerDirector. No matter which method you choose, it's going to involve the use of keyframes. Let's start with one that I use nearly all the time, and it involves using the advanced overlay editing window. I'll start with a simple still image called Logo Truck, which I'll drag down to my track 1. I'll click on the blue Edit button and then the Advanced button, which takes me into the Advanced Overlay Editing window. Now, this is my preferred method because I have direct control of keyframes for position, scale, opacity, rotation, anchor point, and freeform, as you can see in the timeline in the lower right of the window. Along the left side, notice the adjustments for scale, position, rotation, and anchor point. Notice also that I could add keyframes from these left side menu options by clicking on the hollow diamond. Unfortunately, there are some numbers that you are going to have to remember, such as the value for scale, which is currently set as 1.000, and position, which is set for 0.500 for both the X and Y axes. Permanently remember these values because you will always be using them again and again. Besides, there's going to be a quiz later in this tutorial. A standard screen coordinate system is used by PowerDirector where the origin of 0, 0 is at the upper left and 1, 1 is at the lower right. And yes, these values can be negative, which means the image would actually be at least partially off screen. I have the anchor point checked to being displayed as a green tack, which indicates the center point of the screen. And it seems to be on top of a black rectangular compartment on the truck. Notice its value is 0.5 for both X and Y axes. Now that you know the basics, let's do a zoom in and zoom out by adding keyframes using the scale parameter. I normally like to start out with a clean slate by creating a keyframe right here at the beginning using the normal display values. One of the other methods to create a zoom effect automatically creates this initial setting, but using this advanced overlay editing window does not. With the playhead at the start, I'll click the white diamond to add a keyframe here. The values of the keyframe are now based on what appears on the left side, which is 1.0 for scale and 0.5 for the X and Y axes. In the timeline itself, a red diamond is shown where the keyframe was entered. I'm going to start my zoom in immediately when the image appears, so the question is, just how long do I want the zooming in process to last? Now, usually 1 or 2 seconds is appropriate, but it could be slower and longer if desired. I'll choose 2 seconds, which means that I want to move the playhead to the 2-second position. If you look at the ruler in the timeline, the 2-second position is not clearly indicated. Now, I could enter it directly into the time code and hit return, but here's one nice thing about using this advanced editing method. I'm going to zoom in on the ruler by clicking and slowly dragging it to the right. And then I'm going to move the scroll bar at the bottom over slightly. Now the time divisions are much more clearly defined, and it's easy to move the playhead to the exact 2-second position. Now remember this little tip about zooming in on the ruler, as it comes into play in one of the other methods, and surprisingly, it is not available at all in another method. With the playhead now at the 2-second position, this marks the spot where I want the zooming in to be complete. I do not need to click to add a keyframe here right now because any value changes that I'm going to make in the left side will create the necessary keyframe. The next question is just how much of a zoom do I want? I could enter a new value for scale in the left, such as 2 or 4, but I'll show you the little more difficult method that is available. I'm going to go to the preview window and use the corner gadgets to change the size just by clicking and dragging until the size seems appropriate. I'm going to hover over the lower left corner until the cursor changes to a double-sided arrow. And then I'm going to drag down and to the left and release it when the picture size seems appropriate. Now notice the anchor point remains on the front black compartment, and also notice that PowerDirector recognized that I changed something at that 2-second time code, so it automatically created a red diamond indicating a keyframe. And if you look over on the left side, you can see that the scale values have changed to around 3 or so, depending on how much the mouse gets dragged down and to the left. So where are those white corner gadgets right now? Well, they are still there. We just can't see them because they are out of frame. Notice the scroll bars along the right and bottom edges of the preview window. I'll use them to scroll over to the left edge and downward until the edge of the original image comes into view. Now I could grab that corner gadget again and continue to zoom, but instead I think I'll just use the method on the left side and change my scale value to 4. It's important to make any secondary adjustments without moving the playhead. Otherwise, PowerDirector will think you want to create yet another keyframe at a different time code. I wish PowerDirector had a button to recenter the view, but I'll just have to use the scroll bars manually. Oh, but wait, there is such a button. Just hit the stop button to return the playhead to the beginning. There, that was easy. Now, the next question is, just how long do I want to hold this current zoomed in display? I'm going to pick 2 seconds, so I'll need to move the playhead forward to the 4-second position. Because I already have the ruler zoomed in, I'm going to use the scroll bar at the bottom until the 4-second position becomes clear. Now, alternatively, I could just type in 4 seconds in the timeline, which is what I'm going to do this time, just to prove that I'm never consistent. As soon as I hit return, the playhead is at the 4-second position. Pay close attention here because this is where a lot of users make a mistake. This is not where I enter in new scale values, but rather this is the position to indicate the end of the current value previously entered. I could just click the white diamond to create another keyframe, and it would usually adopt the values currently showing along the left side, assuming I haven't changed any of them. But here is the preferred method. I'm going to right-click in the timeline along the same line for scale and choose Duplicate from Previous Keyframe. I now have a beginning keyframe with the default display values, a start of a zoom keyframe, and an end of a zoom keyframe for a total of 3 keyframes. If I click on the ruler and drag it towards the left, those 3 keyframes become visible at the same time. Now next, I can manually move the playhead over to the very end, or just hit the end key on the keyboard. Now the playhead is at the very last frame of the clip. This is the position that I want to set everything back to the normal display. It will take from the 4-second mark to the end at 5 seconds, which means it will zoom back out in only 1 second. Now, rather than to try to manually click on one of those corner gadgets of the image, I could just use the left side to enter those normal viewing values. If I could only remember what they were. Now, here is your first quiz question to see if you were paying attention. What numbers should I type in for the scale and the X and Y axes to return the display to normal. If you are still awake, you should know that I need to type in the scale value of 1.0. Because I never really changed the position of the display, they both should still be at the default values of 0.5, but it's best to double check and re-enter the value just in case you accidentally moved something. Sometimes I wish PowerDirector had a button which would automatically re-enter those numbers. If I had a nickel for every time I've had to type these in, I would almost have enough money to buy a cup of coffee. Okay, let's test out our work. I'm going to move the playhead to start and then hit play. It all looks good. I'm going to click on OK to exit the Advanced Overlay Editing window and return to the main window. Notice that the clip on the timeline gives no visual representation that keyframes have been added to it. You can only see them by editing the clip using one of the methods we just utilized. For now, I'll just select the clip and I'm going to hit delete. So far, I have zoomed in and out on a still image. You might be wondering if the same method works for video as well. The answer is yes. It is identical. I'm going to drag down to the timeline a video clip called Santa Cruz. Fortunately for all of us, there is no obnoxious audio of the beach and boardwalk. Notice that this clip is much longer, nearly 3 minutes in duration. I'm going to set up nearly the same type of keyframing that we did for the still image. Namely, I'm going to start zooming in immediately for 2 seconds. Then I'm going to hold that zoom for a little bit longer this time. And then I'm going to zoom back out to a normal scale in position values. This will go a little faster, so pay attention. I'll open the clip in the Advanced Overlay Editing window. Making sure that the values on the left side are normal, I'll add a baseline keyframe for the scale at the start. I'll click and drag the ruler to the right to zoom in. When I see the 2-second position, I'll place the playhead right there at 2 seconds. And then I'm going to change the scale in the left side to 4. I'll click the slider bar at the bottom to move over to be able to see the 6-second position and place the playhead there, which will give me a little bit longer duration of watching it zoomed in than before. I'm going to right-click and select Duplicate from Previous Keyframe. I'll click the slider bar at the bottom to find the 8-second position, and I'll place the playhead there. That will give me a full 2 seconds to zoom back out. I'll then change the scale value on the left side to read 1.0. And that's it. Watch the timeline when I zoom out on the ruler by clicking on the right side of the ruler and dragging it all the way to the left. Now notice how close all of those keyframes appear when the timeline shows the entire duration of a somewhat lengthy clip. Imagine trying to add these keyframes without being able to zoom in on the ruler. I'll move the playhead to start, and then I'm going to hit play. Everything looks good, so when it's done, I'm going to click OK to return to the main window. Well, folks, that's my preferred method of zooming in and adding keyframes for any of the other parameters. Now, some users may use a different method, and then CyberLink seems to recommend the use of the pan and zoom effect, which I personally think is a bad choice. But who am I? I'm just one human, while CyberLink is 1,000 robots. In the next videos to be coming up, I'm going to show the difference in accomplishing the same zoom using those different methods. If you like this video, click on that like button. I invite everybody to leave a comment below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.